For more on the growing diversity of the Republican Party, I want to welcome on radio host Stacy Washington, who serves as a member of the President's Advisory Board, Black Voices for Trump. So, Stacy, when we look at really the first efforts that we saw kicking off the convention, we definitely saw an outreach to different demographics across the country, whether it's black voters, Latino voters, families of refugees from Cuba and Venezuela, women. I mean, it was no doubt a diverse type of outreach for this campaign. On that front, do you think it was successful?
Alex, I do. I actually think our first night of RNC convention was just a stark opposite in comparison to the DNC last week. It was positive. There was a lot of storytelling. It was regular Americans. Now, make no mistake, we're going to have our share of, kind of celebrities and things like that during this week. Mm-hmm. But the first night really focused on the opportunity that is America. Stories from people's families. Senator Tim Scott said, one generation from cotton to Congress. I mean, these were inspirational moments, and I just enjoyed it a lot. There were even a few times, Alex, where I felt like I might actually get a little dusty in the room and cry. It was great.
No, that line by Senator Tim Scott, to me, that was the takeaway of the entire night. I mean, and it was perfect for the RNC, too, because we were talking when we were covering that event that when it comes to these things, it's about the big moment, in my opinion. What people are willing to talk about afterwards and going into the next day that really carries that momentum. And for me, Senator Tim Scott's speech was that. I thought it really hit home. I thought it was not only very strong on policy, but it was very personal to not only him, but many Americans in this country as well. And then a lot of people I saw, too, were comparing that to what the Biden campaign has done with Senator Kamala Harris, where even before it was about her, it was the idea that he wanted to pick a woman, he wanted to pick a woman of color. And it wasn't necessarily just Kamala Harris, it was that he wanted to fill those quotas. Do you think that really speaks about the differences between the two parties?
Okay, so Alex, I've made no secret that I found that to be highly insulting. While I disagree with Kamala Harris on pretty much everything except what the color of the sky is and what day it is, I have to say the woman was the Attorney General of California. She was a prosecutor, and she's an accomplished individual. She has an education that is stellar. I mean, this was someone who, had he not made those statements earlier, he could have said, I chose Kamala Harris because of, and then gave her credentials, and that would have been enough. But for him to say 6 or 7 months ago, or whenever that was, that he had to choose, he was going to choose a black woman, it kind of really said there's no one else who's qualified, or the person that I choose, their qualifications come after those two defining characteristics. And I can tell you, Alex, I'm blessed with more melanin than you are. But when we're going for a job, that shouldn't be the consideration. And how do you work in an environment? I know this is the vice presidency, so this is different. But the comparison stands because most of us don't deal with the vice presidency. We deal with our everyday interactions. How do I sit next to you in meetings, or how do I go up to my other coworkers and really command their respect if I'm there because I'm a black woman, not my credentials? So that was a really sad moment for America, in my opinion, but it follows his previous comments. Remember, I'm not from a diverse community, Alex. Mm-hmm. If I don't vote for him, I ain't black. He only talks like that to black people. He only says ain't to black people. So there's a continuing problem there, and it's bigger than Kamala Harris, but this was an example of it, for sure.
I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, you're spot on about the Kamala Harris thing. I mean, if she would have just been announced straight up, I mean, like her politics or not, her record is very impressive. And when you put that on a resume, it is something that you don't need to justify based on race or anything like that. But that's what they decided to focus on. I think that's a very excellent point. And it speaks to something a little bit larger than that, too, is that maybe Joe Biden is trying to represent a Democratic Party that he's no longer really part of. I think the Democratic Party has deviated so far from what he is, and that he is now forced to play his traditional politics, which is not accepted within the modern-day Democratic Party. And we see the Democratic Party shifting more to the left, becoming more progressive, more socialist, more woke, whatever word you want to use. And then last night, we saw people like Maximo Alvarez, other people come out and say, it's okay to have these conversations, but let me warn you about what socialism and communism has done to other countries, because my family escaped that. Is that the theme that we're going to see over the next couple nights as well?
So I'm so excited because it's not just Mr. Alvarez. It is a really interesting group of people. We saw Kim Klacik, who's a breakout star.
Oh, yeah.
I want to just point out, Alex, I've known about her for a couple of years. Yeah. Like, she's always It's been fantastic, but I'm so glad to see her have her moment right next to an election that we need her to win, that she deserves to win. She's earned the right to serve in Congress for her district. But so many more really fantastic American stories are going to be the theme of this week. And I just encourage people. I know it's every week is busy. If you're a parent or if you're not, you have a lot on your plate. But it would be really great to bookmark some of the speeches for each night to be able to kind of just receive the information from the speakers, because the people who were chosen by the RNC to speak this week, so many great people, but this is the cream of the crop. They represent America. So not because they're Black or Hispanic or women or anything like that, but because their stories are uniquely American, and they're the reason why we have the #1 desirable country in the world for people wanting to immigrate. That's because of the things you're going to hear from the RNC speakers night after night. They're going to highlight the wonder of this nation, and they're going to talk about maybe the place of their origin and the difference. And that's so important, Alex. I hope people really take it in.
Yeah, me too. And I hope that networks don't cut away from some of the speeches, because some of those big opportunities, including Maximo's, were missed last night because of fact-checking or whatever else people wanted to do. But when it comes to Kimberly Klacik, it's long overdue for her to get the platform that she's had. I mean, what she's been doing on the ground in Baltimore has been excellent. And I think we're going to see a lot of her in the Republican Party over the next couple months, but especially years as well. I think she's the future of the party in some degree. But Stacy Washington, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, breaking down what we saw last night. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just encourage people to stick with OAN, because I noticed you guys didn't break away. So if they want the full thing, they can watch you guys.
I was trying to be a little more subtle than that, but I'm not going to disagree with that. Stacy, thank you very much for coming on tonight.